Hi, this is Dr. Victoria Andarcia. Thank you for joining me on the Healthful Roots podcast. Today we have Ashley McIntyre from the Elevated Plate. Ashley, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I am born and raised in Florida, and I'm actually from the Bradenton, Sarasota area. I grew up here. Went to the University of Florida for undergrad and majored in marketing. I was a pharmaceutical rep for about 8 years after graduating. And then when I had children, decided to stay home. So I stayed home with them for a number of years, and then I knew when I was going back to a career that I didn't love pharmaceuticals. It wasn't a good fit for me. And I really wanted to find something that would allow me both to still be a mom and be involved, but to have my own business and to be able to like run my own hours. So I got really passionate about nutrition during COVID, and it kind of wound up with me going back to grad school and getting a master's in clinical nutrition and becoming a certified nutrition specialist and being licensed in Florida.
That's awesome. And what specifically about COVID or whatever was happening at that time made you interested in nutrition?
So I feel like there's a lot of things that we couldn't control during COVID. And I knew I could control like what my family ate and how healthy we were. And I've always had a passion for eating healthy and trying new things and trying to make foods healthier but still taste good. And so I kind of went down just like this rabbit hole of seed oils and, how they can, be inflammatory. And I was doing all this research and I thought, you know what? Maybe this is what my next career is supposed to be, because my daughter, right after COVID, was about to go to kindergarten. So it was like perfect timing for me to go
Yeah.
back to school. And so I did a almost 2-year program for clinical nutrition and really loved it. I've always loved the science around it, but also I think, nutrition is something that we can control. Obviously some people have more of a barrier around what they can spend on food, but definitely things that we can manage. And that's something that we have a choice over.
Right. Okay. And how is clinical nutrition different, if it is at all, from regular nutritionists?
So it's really interesting. I did not know this till I decided I wanted to become a nutritionist. So dietitians have a very specific route, and the only reason I didn't become a dietitian is I have no interest in working in a hospital setting and doing anything of that nature. And I wanted to go more holistic route, and a lot of the more holistic, integrative, functional side of nutrition, you can become a certified nutrition specialist. And that's what that would be like kind of I guess the DO side of going the nutrition route. And so different states require different amounts of education to become a nutritionist. And in the state of Florida, it has like some of the most rigorous, you have to have a master's in nutrition and, all this stuff and do 1,000 hours, clinical hours, pass the board exam and everything. In other states, you can take like a 6-week online class. So my definition of clinical nutrition is somebody that has all the science background that I had to get and can apply it. So it's not just, the food that you put on your plate. It's like, let's look at your labs. Where are your vitamin D levels? Oh, you're a vegan, so maybe we're going to need to supplement with vitamin B12 and vitamin D because you're not getting enough through food, right? Or, you are on a statin, which could mean that your body is being depleted of CoQ10. So we're going to
Yeah.
need to supplement with that if you're on a statin. So I think it's really being able to look at the science and at a cellular level be able to know what nutrients are needed based upon the client's goals, and then their labs and their medical diagnoses that come from you, the physician.
Okay. That's really interesting. And it also sounds like it requires a significant amount of time, right? Because I'm sure that the nutrition or the dietary changes aren't going to change like right away. So if someone was looking to work with you and is on all these medications, can you just kind of run us through like what your process would be and how long do you think it's realistic for someone to like work with you?
You're right, and I don't see clients one off. Like I rarely will see a client one time. That is just not normal. So normally I work with clients anywhere from 2 to 6 months. I have worked with clients, about up to a year before, because it takes a long time to make change.
Mhm.
And so a lot of people intuitively know generally what they need to do, but sometimes they need someone to hold their hand in the process.
Yeah.
So clients don't leave with me with like a laundry list of things that they need to change and foods that they need to take and everything. I usually give them 2 to 3 goals at a time. So
Mhm.
it could be like, you're dealing with prediabetes, right? Well, it's not always just food. If your sleep is terrible, we've got to get that on board, because, there's studies that show that lack of sleep definitely leads to blood sugar spikes. So it's kind of like a whole body approach, but also like educating around, well, maybe they didn't realize that, eating a banana by itself is just going to totally spike their blood sugar, and they need to blunt it and, pair it with some nuts or some nut butter or something else with it so that they're not seeing that spike. And honestly, it's just a little bit of education, but it does take time. And I'm also a health coach. So I think that that's beneficial because, then I'm able to do some of like the hand holding and kind of help them create those behavior changes.
Yeah. And it's just like, I wanted to highlight that because I see people come and they're expecting that in 3 months they're going to get to where they want to go. But when you're talking about nutrition or what I do, like the functional medicine, nothing happens in isolation. You have to look at sleep, you have to look at nutrition, you have to look at how you're moving and dealing with stress. Like there's so much involved. So it sounds like you offer kind of like a whole package if you're going through these things step by step. There is a question I wanted to ask you based off of what you said, because I talk about it in my clinic, but I don't think I do a good job, is the food pairings that you mentioned. Can you just talk a little bit about that and like why that's important?
So I mentioned some like a client, that might have pre-diabetes, but I actually talk about blood sugar management with all of my clients. I think it's a cornerstone of health,
Hmm.
because some people might have really great genes. So it might not be that you don't have diabetes now, but that doesn't mean you're not susceptible to getting it later. And even if your body is really great at managing these glucose spikes, those constant like peaks and valleys of glucose it causes inflammation at a cellular level. So the more that we can have just like these little rolling hills throughout the day, not only will our energy be better and more even toned, it's better at a cellular level. But how I kind of tell people to think of it, I call it the critical four. And a lot of, different nutritionists will have their own kind of way of describing it, but I say no naked carbs. So we don't eat carbs alone. So we don't just eat crackers. That's boring anyway. Who wants to eat plain crackers?
Yeah.
So get some cheese, pair it with cheese, or get something with fat, fiber, and protein. Those are the, critical four: fat, fiber, protein. And if you can add color in, if you don't already have color, those are the critical four that are going to help blunt those blood sugar spikes, again, leading to decreased inflammation and a better energy level throughout the day. So, if you're making a smoothie, fine, throw a banana or some mango in it, which would be your carbohydrate, your
Yeah.
sugar, but make sure you've got like some protein with some Greek yogurt or protein powder. Make sure you've got some fiber with either flaxseed or chia seed, something like that. And then if you don't already have fat, like if you've done the Greek yogurt, that's great. But if not, then you can add in some like nut butter,
Hmm.
MCT oil. There's like a lot of possibilities just to make sure that we're making that meal or that smoothie or whatever it is, the snack, be balancing to your blood sugar. And I talk to this, like I said, with all of my clients, because I think it's a really big piece that's missed, and a lot of people don't understand how those work in the body.
Yeah, and sometimes I pair that with like a continuous glucose monitor because I think it's fun when people can actually see like, okay, I added a fat this time and I had my protein and like it actually worked versus when I don't. I think it's so fun to see that.
I'm actually wearing one right now,
Okay.
because I agree. I think it's a great education tool to kind of
Yeah.
see. And what's so unique about it is that there are some typical things that we can say, like, yes, if you're going to have a bag of Skittles, everyone's
Hmm.
glucose is going to spike, but your body and my body may be different. I may be fine eating a banana and it might not have a huge impact, but somebody else, it's going to send them on this big roller coaster. So there is nuance, and everybody's body. I guess it's like a bio individual thing
Right.
there.
Yeah, that's cool. And one of the things I saw on your website is that you offer grocery shopping tours as part of
Yeah.
your services, which I think is very unique, also practical. So, can you elaborate on what the tour involves and why you decided to incorporate that into your practice?
So I do see about 75, 80% of my clients via Zoom telehealth. But for the clients that I do see locally, I offer these. They're really fun, both for me and the client, I think, because I think they're really practical, and it's like that where the rubber meets the road, hands on, so to speak. So I think, if they come with their grocery list for the week of things they normally buy, or maybe they're trying a few new recipes, it's really fun for me to be like, to look at products with them. So, like their typical yogurt that they buy, maybe it has 20 grams of sugar. Like, let's see if we can swap it out for something less. Or, the typical crackers that they purchase has like 50 ingredients on it. Can we buy something that's just a little bit more of a whole food that's not so processed, right? So it's just like going through those things and like educating, even like things like, why you would want to buy certain foods organic and why it's okay to buy others that aren't, talking about the clean 15 and the dirty dozen with them, and being able to educate them on that. Or if their budget allows, being able to educate on why it might be worth spending more money on a grass-fed pasture-raised meat than conventional meat. Again, budget is, it depends on the client, but being able to like really go through their list and being able to give them reasons why certain foods might work better for them, at a cellular level.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I have a worksheet that I did, and it's like how to read food labels, but I think there's something so, like you said, fun, but it make probably clicks better for them when you're in the grocery store and you can say like, hey, this is what I'm looking for, versus just giving them a worksheet. So I think that's really cool.
Right.
Yeah. And you've also mentioned your health coach, which I think super important when you're doing like holistic and behavior modification to have that component. Um, so how do you think that plays a key role in your programs, like the behavior part?
Um, I think it's important because I don't love the word diet. In general, I have two young daughters and I try
Mhm.
not to use it. I think it has bad connotation. It sounds like it's short term. When you
Mhm.
say you're on a diet, people like, it sounds like you're something you're doing for a short period of time for whatever reason you have. So I try not, I don't really use that word. I try to focus on long term, and that's where the behavior modifications come in. And I get to use that, training as a health coach. So I don't know if you've read it. One of my favorite books that I tell clients to read, but I use a couple of his things. It's James Clear's Atomic Habits. I don't know if you've
No,
read
but I
it.
know what book you're talking about.
It's so good. It's so good. But so a couple things that he recommends that I think make things easier to implement. Um, and it sounds really simple, but most people don't do it. So make the behaviors that you want to adopt easy, right?
Mhm.
Let's make them really easy. Let's meal plan on Sundays, or let's put the supplements that you want to, take out in the morning and have them on the counter. Make it really easy and make the behaviors that you want to maybe not have around hard, right? So let's, maybe freeze the candy that you really like so that you have to wait for it to defrost or something like that. Another example of making something easy is like the night before, set out all your clothes to go exercise. You know what I mean? Make it easy, make your life easier so that that behavior is easier to adopt. He also talks about habit stacking, which I love, because if you have a habit, like say for instance, we all like brush our teeth in the morning, right? So, and I don't know why I keep thinking of supplements, but if that's a excuse or a reason. A lot of clients are like, I just can't remember to take my
Yeah.
supplements. And it's like, just put them right next to your toothbrush because you're going to brush your teeth every morning. And so then your habit stacking, you're creating a new habit on top of a habit that you already have. And so that can make it easier too. But I think a lot of, giving clients those like little nuggets,
Hmm.
and suggestions kind of helps change it. But again, I think it goes back to, I usually see clients every 2 weeks and giving them 2 or 3 different goals to work towards, not 10.
Yeah.
Um, there's just, it's not, you're not going to do all 10.
No, or they
Um,
get overwhelmed and then they won't do it at all.
yeah. I actually had a client recently that wanted to see me monthly and wanted me to give them 10, like not 10 goals
Okay.
specifically, but more goals in between. And we were trying to work it out and it just wasn't a good fit because it wasn't consistent enough. And there were just there was too much time in between meeting and they weren't seeing the changes that they wanted to see. So
Yeah. Well, and that answers one of my questions. So you're meeting with everyone every 2 weeks, and with your clients, when you're working with them, what are some of the biggest misconceptions that they have about nutrition and eating healthy?
I think people think they can't eat food that tastes good. I
Hmm.
think they think working with a nutritionist can mean like being deprived and having to get rid of all their favorite foods. And sometimes it's just trying to make those foods healthier. That's kind of where I came up with the elevated plate. The name of the company is
Hmm.
like, let me help you elevate your plate. Let's take your favorite dish and let's just make it like healthier. Let's add in some more fiber. Let's put in some more color. Let's make sure that you're, meeting all the nutrients that you need to be your best, right? So, any way that I can do that to elevate, a meal or a dish that I'm trying to create for my family, especially my kids that are now doing after school activities left and right. I try to make sure that, happens. Like this morning it was, I have, microgreens that grow on my windowsill, and I kill everything. And these things I can actually grow them, but I like trimmed a bunch off and threw them in a smoothie because I know my kids won't taste it. But it's getting them a lot of extra micronutrients by doing that, and a little bit of fiber too.
Microgreens are my favorite cheat, I call it, because you can put it on like avocado toast, in a smoothie,
Yeah,
really on anything, and it doesn't
yeah.
have a strong taste, but you feel like extra healthy just because you threw some microgreens on there.
Yeah, it was my sister a couple of years ago gave me this kit. I think, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. It's called Ha Mama, Hey Mama. I don't know.
Mhm.
And they send you the sheets, and all you do is add water. And I literally kill all plants. And I this is going strong. Every 2 weeks, I just replenish
Oh,
with a little sheet, and it's great.
oh, I'm gonna have to look into that, so I
Yeah.
don't have to buy it. Okay. And you've mentioned supplements in your, like while we've been talking.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I find has been a misconception in my clinic with my patients is that they'll be like, well, if I'm eating healthy, I don't need supplements. Like, why am I taking supplements? So, can you kind of talk about why we're using supplements to fill in certain gaps?
So, and I would love your response too. I'd love to hear how you describe it. So, I feel like it's a couple things. If I have a client that is able to afford micronutrient testing, we can look at their cells from like a 3 month standpoint and kind of see what their body's absorbing and where they have nutrient gaps. And that can be like a really big, eye opener. I try to do food first as much as
Yeah.
possible, but over the past 100 years, our soils are not the same. Our foods are sitting out longer. The longer they sit out in the grocery store before we buy them, the less nutrients they have when we eat them. Or if we buy the broccoli on Sunday, but we don't cook it till Saturday, same thing. Like as the longer it is from harvest to eating, the less nutrients are in the food. I actually read a book that said that most, which makes me really sad, most broccoli in a grocery store setting has virtually like no vitamin C or something
Oh,
in it
wow.
because of it's been harvested so long before. So it's stuff like that where we have to fill in those gaps. And I usually use, kind of say it as an insurance plan to my
Hmm.
clients. Like, when you're taking certain supplements like a multivitamin, it's just kind of like an insurance plan. Other supplements are really like more targeted. Like if you have a client that really doesn't like fish,
Mhm.
omega-3s are so important and so anti-inflammatory. I really recommend to take one. Now, if I have a client that's taking an omega-3, I tell them if you have salmon on the menu tonight or you've been eating a bunch of fish, you can totally skip taking your omega-3. It's really just to help fill in those gaps. So I don't know how you describe it to
Yeah, no,
your
I like that.
patients.
I really do because it is like filling in the gaps. And I didn't know about the broccoli. That is sad because I like broccoli. But
Mm-hmm.
I did a presentation, and when I was doing the research, I saw this article, and it said that when our grandparents ate an orange, they would eat one orange. Today, to get the same nutrients, we'd have to eat 8 oranges.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's bad.
And I was just like, okay, that's bad because you've already mentioned that. But then if you talk about certain medications that people are on, you mentioned the statin, but some medications deplete certain vitamins and minerals, and you have to fill
Mm,
in that gap. So that's another reason. And then, one of the other reasons that I see people for is if you have any issues with your gut, right? That can inhibit the absorption of what the food that you're getting.
for sure.
So there's a lot of things. And what I try to tell people is like, ideally, it's not forever or it's not as many as you might need to start out with. We try to like taper things out,
Mm-hmm.
but um, we don't realize how affected we are by like micronutrient, like nutrient and vitamin deficiencies, right? It can lead to a whole host of from like hair health, mood, energy. It affects so many things. So, yeah, I'm glad that we touched on that.
Yeah. Well, and going back to what you asked me earlier about clinical nutrition, I think that's another important piece to working with somebody that has education around, you know, the looking looking at health from a cellular level, but also with supplements, I think it's really important if you're not able to work with like if I was to work with one of your patients as a
Mhm.
client, we could meet in the middle. That doesn't happen a lot with conventional medicine and doctors. They don't have time to kind of talk about, the same client, right? So I think it's important when you're working with a nutritionist and they're recommending supplements that if they can't meet in the middle with your physician, that they're also looking at the supplements that you're recommending and making sure, like I have a database where I double check all of their prescription medications with any supplements I recommend because we want to make sure that there's no interactions or what nutrient depletions there are, you know what I mean, so that we know
Yeah.
what we're dealing with. Because I think that's really important, and that can be a tricky spot if you have somebody that's recommending stuff and they're not double checking on that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that's really important. So I'm glad that you touched on that. And, one of the things that I'm thinking here as you're talking is you have like dietitians, nutritionists, and clinical nutrition. So when you have someone sign up with you, what exactly are they looking for?
What do you mean? I'm
Like,
sorry.
what is it that they're trying to improve? Are they just like trying to improve their overall health? Are they trying to lose weight? Like, when someone comes to you, what are they looking for?
Um, I would say the vast majority of my clients have very different needs. Sometimes I would say maybe 30 to 40 or they come to me with a weight loss goal, but it's more of like I'm not a big fan of pounds on a scale, if I'm
Right.
honest, as a goal. I don't think it's a good marker. I think it's a better marker is how you're feeling,
Mhm.
your energy level. You know what I mean? I think if we can focus our goals more on that. So I usually try to drive clients in that first meeting to be like, well, what are you really looking to attain? Other than fitting into a pair of jeans or seeing a number on a scale, like what specifically are we going towards? So I try to find goals that are going to make them feel better than just a number on a scale. But it's varying. A lot of people have energy level
Mhm.
issues. And again, it's just because they're not eating foods that are fueling them throughout the day, or they're just eating a lot of carbs that are leading them down this like blood sugar slump. Like I said, I'm wearing a CGM, and this weekend, it was Labor Day this past weekend, and literally one afternoon, I couldn't figure out why I had no energy, and I checked, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm totally hypoglycemic right now. I'm like, it totally makes sense. So, like you said, stuff like that is a great tool so you can kind of learn your body. But I feel like all my clients have a little different goals. Sometimes it's headaches.
Mm.
acne. Um, and there's, that's why I think it takes time to work with clients. It's not a one off because, energy can be for many different things. And so it takes a while to kind of figure out what's causing the lack of energy and how we can support that nutritionally.
Okay. And one of the questions that I have on all these, so you have all these different clients coming to you for different things. How do you structure a plan around like their needs specifically?
So I first and foremost take their goals because sometimes it's easy to see a client, see their labs, see their medical diagnoses, and kind of come up to my own conclusions. So I focus on their goals and what's important to them first. But then I do take into account their medical diagnoses and, you know, their medical history. So even though they may not have high cholesterol right now, it may be slightly elevated, and all of their family has high cholesterol. And so that's something that I should educate around what's important to keep your cholesterol levels at a good level, making sure we get fiber and everything like that. And then I look at their labs. A lot of clients are deficient in vitamin D. It's kind of silly, but I'm pretty passionate about bone health. I see a lot of elderly women that have osteoporosis, and it's one of those things that people don't think about till now it's too late, but they just don't think about it earlier in life, and it's not a focus. And it really should be. Because our bones, we have to maintain muscle mass, doing weight bearing exercises, having vitamin D, vitamin K2, getting all of these minerals on board so that we can keep our bones strong. But I think looking at lab work, and then really important is looking at any symptoms they're having. Like,
Mhm.
are they having sleep issues? Do they have acne? Do they have rashes? Do they get sick all the time? Like, go through a
Yeah.
whole host of like, what are your symptoms? And then really coming up with a personalized plan that works for them. Because that also takes into account foods that they like and don't like.
Right.
So I may say, you need to be eating way more calcium, but you may hate dairy. You know what I mean? Or whatever. And we have to like work through that and come up with other suggestions and foods that they're actually going to eat. It's not beneficial if I'm recommending foods that would help their symptoms, but they don't like them.
I think that's very unique because I think what we see now, especially in the traditional model, is that they just give you a list like, here, this is what you should be doing. Or they tell you, like, you need to eat healthy, and they never tell you what that is. So I think that's great that you can tailor it specifically for that patient in a way that they'll actually follow it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I think that, like I brought up the blood sugar piece, but I think the other piece, like you said, that's so important is with most clients, I do a lot of education around blood sugar and a lot of education around our microbiome and our gut and what's, the foods, like our prebiotic foods, our probiotic foods, and fiber. I think it's 95% of Americans don't eat enough fiber. I think it's 14 grams is what the average American eats. And, I recommend minimum 30, even, if you're a larger man, upwards of 40.
Right.
So it's just that. And that's so important for cholesterol management. And we go through, a lot of education around why, and, just eating who, I think it was Michael Pollan. He's
I know who he is. Yeah.
yeah, what is it?
His book. He wrote a book on, is it?
Eat food, mostly plants, not too much.
Yes.
And I was a vegan / vegetarian at one point. I eat meat now, so I'm very good at being able to suggest things for the person and their eating style that they prefer. But I think really coming down to we need to eat more plants, and that's where we're going to get a lot of micronutrients. And we do need to supplement because our food isn't the same as it was 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So
I agree. Yeah, the fiber I see as a big issue. It's not only for the cholesterol, which I see as well, but it's for hormone management, especially in like perimenopause and menopause.
yeah.
But I want to touch on the vitamin D because the vitamin D is one of the most common nutrient deficiencies that I see. And it's crazy. I can almost like remember specifically the ones who did not have low vitamin D. But when you talk about bone health, that's something that we don't really talk about enough, and especially with women and the osteoporosis, because
Hmm.
I have seen some horrible things in the hospital. I had a woman who came in, she was either late 60s, early 70s. She had like a compression fracture in her spine from bending down to tie her shoe, right? Or like a woman who like just like stretched a little bit too much in her bed one morning and she came in with a compression fracture. And I'm like, this is happening. Like this happens, I don't want to say it happens a lot. I don't know, but I've seen it enough to also be worried about it. And the vitamin D is like the lowest thing I see. So that's
And
important.
it's so common. And vitamin D can almost act as a hormone in your body
Hmm.
too. So it's so interesting. And I know everyone talks about calcium with bone health, but vitamin D is equally as important. And then you've got like all your other minerals like K2,
Yeah.
um, boron, and then there's one that I'm blanking on, strontium.
Mm.
That's just so important for bone health as well. And if it's something that's in your family, that's one of those things that's genetic that's hard
Yeah.
to ignore. Just like sometimes your cardio health is the same, but there are definitely things we can do to manage it if we do it in advance and if we make sure we're doing those weight bearing exercises. And they've got a lot of like new things out, like vibration plates that you can
Hmm.
go to places and do, or you can buy them for your home. A lot of things that you can do prevention before you get diagnosed with osteoporosis.
Okay. I think uh, the elevated plate isn't enough to like show everything that you can do for your patients. Like I love the name, but I think like you do so you can do so much, right? It's not like the nutrition. You're also looking at their lifestyle. You can give them suggestions on exercise and things like that. So I think that's great. I think that anybody that works with you is really getting a lot of benefit out of it. So speaking of that, if someone wanted to work with you, how can they get in touch with you?
So I have a website, theelevatedplate.com. You can go on there and click work with me. I do offer a 20-minute free discovery call just so you can ask questions and make sure we're a good fit. And then I offer packages. I also do corporate and wellness talks. If anybody has a business and wants somebody to come in and speak to their employees, I would love to do that and do like a hands-on workshop. I am on social media, Instagram, Facebook, under the.elevated.plate. I have like a love hate with social media. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe go to your website first.
Exactly. And yeah, I love being able to kind of meet with people and do this discovery calls. I think that it kind of gets them a chance to meet with me and see kind of how my process works and everything. So
Okay, cool. Well, I will put that in the show notes so that they can get in touch with you. And
awesome.
I want to thank you for your time today. I think it's super important to switch to what you're doing, the clinical nutrition, and to be able to work with the individual where they're at and to meet their gaps.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate you having me on. It was wonderful chatting with you.
Same.